Broadcasting live from the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona, in the heart of the great American Southwest, it's Erskine Overnight. Now, here's Erskine.
This Saturday, tonight, we are very fortunate to have with us Robert Chapman, the international forecaster. We're going to tell you a little bit more about why we call it the international forecaster and the views that he gives, because the views that he gives are not the views that you're going to find by Larry Kudlow. They're not the views that you're going to find on CBS, NBC, ABC, all the managed news, CNN. They're the views of what's really happening. Take the blinders off. It ain't pretty, but it's here. Welcome, Mr. Chapman.
Well, thank you for having me back again.
Now, the international forecaster is truly international, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. There's a giant rat hole. GM needs 13 million vehicle sales. They've got 10. AIG needs another $50 to $100 billion. Bank of America needs more money for the Merrill Lynch purchase. We have de facto nationalization of corporations. Zombie banks, they're dead, but they're still up and running, but essentially they're dead. The era of entrepreneurship seems to be over. America has certainly, when you're talking about the de facto nationalization, entered a period of fascism, and we've entered a period where the free market is dead, in my opinion. What's yours on that? What's your take on it? Is this what's happened to America and to the world, where it's being classed no longer capitalism, but fascist and socialist?
Well, fascism is a form of socialism, and the progenitors of modern times of fascism were Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler, and of course we know the communist version. We just got rid of communism in Russia and the satellites a short 15 or so years ago, and then the tepid kind of socialism inhabits Europe today and many other places. And some people like living that way, and that's okay. If that's what they want, that's their business. But in America, we had a constitution destroyed through executive order, and we've also had our rights taken away from us. Now we're having the subsidization by the American public, because they have to bear all those debts that are being accumulated to keep these zombie corporations going. The legacy banks, the five biggest banks in the country, are all bankrupt. All the big brokerage firms are bankrupt. Many of the insurance companies are bankrupt. Even General Electric had to get assistance from the government to buy their commercial paper, because they couldn't pay the price that people wanted, or they didn't have the collateralization that was needed to be able to. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So we're helping all of the transnational, international corporations, and in so doing, we are turning our country into a fascist country. And that's not very good.
The bailouts that we're having, Mr. Chapman, of all these corporations, isn't that tantamount to a Ponzi scheme where we're pushing it on down the road? We're playing musical chairs with our children, our grandchildren's future. I mean, the Ponzi scheme that the federal government's putting together makes Bernie Madoff look like a piker, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and it's tragic, but they're getting away with it. Nobody's saying anything. I mean, I get on the radio and publish my publication, and, very few of the newsletter writers are even talking about the things that I do in the way that I do. And so the word really isn't getting to the public, except, on the Internet and the few letter writers who will approach the subject. It's just like, conflict continually.
That's why subscriptions to the International Forecaster are going through the roof, because people they must have this information. Without it, you can't make an intelligent decision on what's coming up. Are we going to wake up and find the American dollar worth about 17 cents one bright and shiny day, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that the only way for America to be able to spread the misery is to devalue the dollar. And I do not think it will be in a Amero. I think that it'll be another dollar, and maybe they'll say, well, we're going to have to have currency exchange controls, and everybody in America who has dollars will turn them all in, and for every 10 you'll get a new one, or something like that. Now, if they're smart, when they do that, they will also say, and this currency will be backed by 10 or 15 or 20% gold. If they did that, people wouldn't flee from the dollar anymore. And, of course, when you devalue in that manner, you're also devaluing the amount of money that you owe to other people, which right now to foreigners is about $17.5 trillion. That's a lot of money. And, of course, all of the debt that's being incurred here in the last year and a half. And so, there's got to be a devaluation. And I'm hoping that they'll use gold in that new form of dollar. And I think eventually, of course, the internationalists, they want world government and the world currency. And I don't think we're going to go that far, because I think the American people have realized that they've really been taken to the cleaners, and their vote is not worth anything anymore, because the people they sent to Washington don't listen to a thing they say. And so I think it will end up in the streets, and I think the United States government will change.
As goes GM, so goes the nation. There's a lot of truth to that. Have the Illuminists overplayed their cards?
Yes, they have, and I think it was a matter of timing and incompetence. In June of 2002, once they passed that time span there, they were unable to turn back, and they thought that their occupation into Afghanistan and into Iraq would turn out much differently. In fact, almost 4 years ago, Mr. Brzezinski, who is a fervent internationalist, said that all of our plans have been born asunder by the administration in Washington. They just messed everything up. And that's probably a very true statement. And so what's happening now, they wish it wasn't happening now, but it is. And so they're trying to pick the spots where they can execute what they want to execute to bring around about world government, world currency, etc. And the method of getting there has to be very gingerly handled, because if they make one mistake along the way, the whole thing's going to collapse. And it will eventually, but they want it to collapse when they want it to collapse. And this has all been done deliberately. And one of the major
nothing happens by accident.
The collapse of the dollar, but free trade and globalization.
Collapse of free trade, globalization. Watch what's happening. We're going to come back with Robert Chapman, the international forecaster, with much, much more right after these words. Every issue of the International Forecaster, Mr. Chapman has generally put in a topic of that issue, one topic that is really something we need to know about. This time, the key is unemployment. Unemployment seems to be the key, and you're also talking about what's been happening. What's happened with unemployment? There's the official 7.2%, and you're saying it's closer to about 13.5%. Does that include those discouraged workers who are no longer in the marketplace?
No. First of all, there's three figures, and they're all generated by the U.S. government, which means they're bogus. But we'll use them. And the figures that you see, the 7.2%, that figure is short-term unemployment. We'll call it that. Then there's another one called U6, and those are the people who are unemployed and have received the state checks for unemployment compensation for the time allotted, and now they're on their own, and they're trying to find jobs, but they're still unemployed. That U6 figure officially is 13.5%. Then we have another figure, which is called U4, and these are all the people who have been out of work and haven't found a job since 1990. Now that's, 18 years. But there are people who were laid off at 40 years old, who are now 58 years old, who are still out of the workforce. So many of them are on some welfare of one form or another. And so they're included. And that figure is 17.5%.